So, Mark, who do you think the biggest sellers are going to be when we get to 1 month from today?
Well, I've been talking to some NBA GMs and other executives, longtime scouts, and they said keep an eye on the Southwest Division. So let's start in Dallas. No matter what you're hearing, they say keep an eye on Kristaps Porzingis. He is somebody that Dallas is shopping because of salary, injuries, and as one scout said, high maintenance issues. Perhaps it's a little difficult to trade him. Also keep an eye on the Houston Rockets. PJ Tucker and Victor Oladipo, who will be a free agent this summer. You know, another name in San Antonio that's kind of surprising is LaMarcus Aldridge's name's been bandied about. Also, a little bit I'm hearing DeMar DeRozan. And then down in the Bayou in New Orleans, I'm also hearing J.J. Redick as well.
Well, Rach, I think that Mark's that was very interesting, Mark. I'm going to go with Cleveland. I think Andre Drummond is probably one of the more impact players, but it's really hard to move that much money. And so they have two centers that people are going to want, JaVale McGee and Andre Drummond. And I think it'd probably be easier for them to move JaVale, but what do they get for him? And so I think if they can move that Andre Drummond contract, there's a couple of contenders that would like to have him.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this season is the play-in tournament has kept almost everybody alive. So it's not clear to me who is going to be sellers. And the teams that are going to be sellers, do they have anything that is appealing to the teams that are buyers and that is easy to trade for? I look at the Bulls, for instance. Thaddeus Young and Garrett Temple in normal years would be just like central casting win-now trade guys, but the Bulls are right in the thick of the playoff race in the Eastern Conference. But for obvious sellers, you got to look at Oklahoma City with Al Horford and George Hill. The record shows that they will trade stuff for draft picks. And then Mark mentioned if there's one biggish name that I'm looking for that could maybe tip the balance somewhere, it's Victor Oladipo. I'm not saying he's available. I'm not saying the Rockets have made him available, that they're taking calls. I just think logically that's a guy to keep your eye on. Do they want him long-term, or are they going to start exploring what they may be able to get for him? That's a name I'm looking at.
Well, it is interesting, Zach, your point that so many more teams are, quote, in it now, right? Teams that at least feel like they're in it in that play-in zone. And those are teams sometimes that have had a fan base go a very long time since they've had a playoff berth or things to be happy about. So they're not eager to pull the trigger and sell the way they would have been in previous years. It really changes the landscape. It also means that if there are a couple guys available, whether it is end up being Victor Oladipo, and we don't know yet, Andre Drummond, obviously, Ramona, as you pointed out, could tip the scales for a contender somewhere. So it's going to be interesting. Who do you think are the biggest buyers, Zach? Who's looking to pick up these guys the most?
I think you got to start with the teams that are underperforming expectations. So Boston would be one. They're going to look around. They always look around. Denver is 17-14. I think their conference finals berth last year was a signal. We're ready now. We can't wait much longer, so I'd keep an eye on them. And then your teams at the top that are always kind of searching around. Philly will look, the Clippers will look. But these teams, the flip side of it is all these good teams have traded all their draft picks. They don't have anything left to trade. So the Clippers are going to have to trade guys out of their current rotation to get people. But it's going to be sort of the usual suspects in that regard, I think.
I'm hearing that the Clippers are still looking for a point guard, a veteran point guard. George Hill's name is interesting there, as Zach mentioned. Keep an eye on the Nets. They've been wanting a center. They need a center. When they lost Jarrett Allen, they lost a lot of rebounding and shot blocking. And so they're probably looking at Drummond as well as JaVale McGee. Drummond, he's not a guy that's going to be easy to get. So maybe JaVale McGee probably is an easier route. And the Nets are also shopping Spencer Dinwiddie as well, who, despite his injury, he could be a valuable piece for a team in the future.
It was interesting. Mark brought up Dallas as a potential seller. I'm curious to see what they do if they want to buy something, or if they want to do something. They're obviously underachieving, but they don't have any incentive to tank, right? They have to send their draft pick to New York.
Right.
So what do you do with that? And I think, the teams out here in LA, as you mentioned, Zach, they don't have anything much to trade. But if the Lakers want to upgrade at that 5 spot, and they face competition for a couple of if they face competition for the couple of centers that might be available, if you don't want to wait and see who is available on the buyout market, then you could get creative maybe they have a couple of young players that people like, Talen Horton Tucker, Alex Caruso. I know Laker fans will freak out if I even say those names because everybody loves them. But I think the LA teams probably end up just getting the guys in the buyout market, because the Lakers had a pretty good success last year doing that with Markieff Morris.
Well, it is interesting, right? And we're showing on the full screen up there, you can see the trade restrictions because of the step-in rule.
Yep.
Team can't trade all of these first-round picks if they've already traded other first-round picks, right? You're required to keep some of them, so your team does not go completely down the toilet if you mismanage your assets. So that, again, leads us to the buyout market. Zach, do you think that because so many of these key contender teams have so many trade restrictions, the buyout market is going to be even more competitive than usual this year?
I mean, it usually comes down to the top teams anyway, right? And buyout guys, for all the hullabaloo we make of them, they rarely end up impacting the championship race. But yeah, all those teams will pay attention to it. And another buyer I forgot to mention in the sort of underperforming expectations department, you always have to watch Miami. Now, again, they've got a pick out the door too, a couple picks out the door, but they have some trade flexibility. They're 2 games under. They've got Jimmy back now, and they're starting to pick up. Goran Dragic came back last night. They're starting to pick up, but always watch Miami.
Well, Andre Drummond, he's a buyout guy, but he loses his bird rights if you do that with him. So that's not attractive to him. But Brooklyn, Miami, and Toronto have interest. Another kind of maybe not so big names to keep an eye on. Kings might buy out a couple guys, Hassan Whiteside and Nemanja Bjelica. I probably messed up his name. And I'm keeping an eye on George Hill as well.
Well, I'll go with Trevor Ariza. I mean, he's a veteran that you've heard mentioned in several acquisitions over the past couple of years. How many trades did we have last summer? We haven't seen him in Oklahoma City, but his former agent works for the Lakers right now, so always file that one away.
Thank you guys so much for a little primer there. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.